Today we're talking about our emotions and understanding how our emotions actually affect us throughout our lives. Throughout my workshops, I often have the analogy of a tea party when talking about how our emotions are affecting us in our day-to-day. So what happens through our life is that we encounter events. Sometimes they're big, sometimes they're small, but regardless of the size, they have an impact on us, and they impact us on an emotional level. Things happen and they either sadden us, or they make us bitter, or we experience jealousy or anger or frustration. And so we need to understand what happens when we encounter these emotions, because for the majority of us in the society, we don't let go of this right away. We often carry and we sit and we stew in these emotions, and for a majority of society, these emotions start to impact us on our day-to-day. They start to become part of our identity. So in my workshops, I have this analogy of a tea party. And so what happens when something happens to us, we invite the emotion in for a tea party into our homes, into our temple. And we invite them in to understand them a little better. And so they come over and they explain why they're here. They explain why the sadness is here, why the anger is here, why the frustration is here. And instead of listening and understanding and letting your guest out of the door, what we tend to do is we invite them over for a sleepover. And then we wake up the next morning and we remember why we're angry, why we're upset, why we should be sad today. And it's somewhat a familiar and a comforting feeling. There is some comfort in these dense emotions. And so the morning comes and we think, all right, well, maybe you can stick around for the day. Like, something about this feels justified. I feel justified in feeling upset today, so I will continue to feel upset. And so we continue with this emotion in our home. And this tea party has turned into an overnight guest, which then often turns into staying over for a few more nights, maybe a week, perhaps a month, and for some of us, a few months to a few years. And at this point, what the emotion has done is we've invited it into our energetic body and our physical body. And this emotion that has come up from an event that has happened in our lives starts to become part of our character, starts to become part of our demeanor and our identity. So something that happened 5 years ago was not now a passing event that affected us in a certain way, and we understand certain aspects and there are lessons to have learned and things to move from. Now that event has dictated who we are today. Now we're just angry people. We're just frustrated. I am just sad. I am a bitter person. Why? Because of something that happened a couple of years ago. And this is really common for a lot of us to walk around with a lot of baggage. And so instead of inviting that emotion over for a one-night tea party to understand why it is there, we invite this emotion in to become part of our household. They become our roommates, and then they just become part of our furniture and who we are. And so the trick is to understanding how to move through emotions. And we move through our really good emotions really well. Emotions is energy in motion. And so when we're experiencing emotions like excitement and happiness and joy and love, somehow we've got this right. We allow the emotions to come in and move out and come in and move out. This is like water. It flows like water. And then when the dense emotions come in, like anger and bitterness and jealousy and guilt and shame and frustration, for some reason we bring them in and then we shove them down. We don't allow them to move through us. We get stuck in the dense emotions and we don't know how to move through. And so what we end up doing is suppressing them. We invite that tea party emotion and we just make them stay forever. And over time, we encounter more and more events, more and more, miscommunications or interactions with people, or, conversations that are upsetting or situations that upset us. And over time, we collect these emotions and then we just push them down and push them down and push them down. And so we are walking around carrying a really, really heavy weight with us of dense emotions. And a lot of us are unable to even identify the emotion. We know that we don't feel good. We know that we're carrying something. We know that we maneuver through life feeling a heavy weight of something. But because we're not allowing ourselves to feel and then to release, we can't let go of it. So we end up just carrying these emotions everywhere. Now, what we have to understand and remember is that these emotions that we lug with us are dictating how we maneuver through the world. They're dictating how we interact with other people going forward. They're dictating how we interact with ourselves and how we perceive the world. And so it's really important that we learn how to experience uncomfortable emotions and then allow them to let go, allow them to be released from our bodies. Because what happens when we stifle our emotions and when we keep shoving them down is that they will eventually affect you on a physical level, and they will eventually turn into dis-ease and affect us physically through disease. And so it is really important for a healthy body, physically, energetically, to be able to release these emotions. And so this is where the beautiful power of hape comes in. And this is why I always segue to that, at the end, is because hape allows you the moment to sit with your emotions. And what hape is really good at doing is it's really good at allowing your emotions to move. And so we're taking those stagnant emotions and it's going to start getting those emotions to surface. And the beauty of having these emotions surface is that you get to identify what you're feeling inside. We cannot let go of emotions. We cannot let go of things if we are unable to identify them and B, acknowledge that they exist within us. So if we're maneuvering through the world, not acknowledging that we're actually holding onto a lot of pain, then we're not going to be able to heal from this pain. And so hape will give you the moment and the opportunity for you to actually acknowledge what is going on in there. And so hape has this beautiful tendency on bringing out the emotions and for you to start feeling them and releasing them. And that's the beauty, is that when you actually give yourself a moment to feel and release, then you're actually letting go of this emotion from your body and making space for new emotions. There was also an analogy of a mason jar, and there are different analogies of this, but I want to focus on this one for now. That there's a mason jar, and in this mason jar there are rocks inside, and each rock represents a dense emotion that we're holding on. Because we're keeping these emotions in this mason jar. And so each rock represents a different dense emotion that we're still holding on to. So it may be jealousy, it may be anger, it may be frustration, it may be betrayal, it may be guilt, it may be shame, it may be sadness. And before you know it, this mason jar is really full. And we're maneuvering through our lives wanting to feel lighter, wanting to feel more joy, wanting to feel happier and more love. However, we cannot bring these emotions in if we don't let some of this out. If you picture this mason jar that's full of rocks, and we're asking for joy to join us in there, there is no space to put this rock of joy, because all the space has been taken up by all these other emotions. And for the most part, these other emotions are emotions that no longer serve us, but we're holding on to them for justification, for reasoning, for, we feel entitled to feel angry, we feel entitled to feel sad. I get it, I've been there, but it only affects you and it only brings you down. And so what hape is going to do is it's going to allow you to take out a rock. Take one out so that one of joy, one of lightness, one of love can join you in that mason jar. And that's how we slowly start moving through our emotions. We allow our negative, our dense emotions to move through us. We don't stop and stall and then start shoving down because we don't want to feel these. Because they're going to affect you later in life. They're going to affect you in your day-to-day. You're just not going to be aware of what it is that's affecting you. So the better you become at moving through every and any emotion, the lighter you feel moving through life, the lighter you are when you're moving through your day-to-day, instead of holding on to things and then lugging them with you through your life. You're able to just let go, release, let go, release, let go, release, and start anew every day. And so hape is an amazing tool that does this, because we don't give this to ourselves. There are very few of us that actually allow ourselves to sit in a day and sit with ourselves with no distraction, no work, no conversations, no phones, and just sit and feel and listen. Because this is difficult. We're not prepared for what may come out, and sometimes we don't want to really face what comes up. And so Hapé gives you the moment to trust that, hey, everything's going to be okay. Things are going to come up and you're going to feel them. But in feeling them, you'll actually have a moment of release. And so bit by bit, you're going to let go of these emotions. And so this is the little tea party analogy of our emotions. And I think it's really important to understand this so that we know how to move through the denser periods of our lives, the periods of change, the periods of difficulty, and how the beautiful Amazonian medicine of Hapé actually helps us with this. And it teaches us how to do this even without utilizing it. And so I hope this video helps you get a bit of a better grasp of how you may have been maneuvering through life. I think most of us do this. We hold on to bits and pieces, and perhaps you're lucky enough to not be holding on to a really big chunk that defines who you are, and it's just little pieces and that you're able to let it go. But I hope this video helps you understand that we need to move through to feel lighter and to release, and so that we do not cause our bodies stress, and so that we do not weigh ourselves down, that it is really important to keep ourselves light, and to understand that if we want joy to enter, we have to release a bit of the denser emotions. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you'd like to start a conversation, just share your comments below. I'm here for it. I'm here for community. This is the idea of this channel, is not only to educate and share and inspire, but to build community. We are all walking each other home, and so we all have really important ideas and concepts and stories to share. We all relate to one another. So please feel free to add a comment below. If you haven't subscribed, feel free to subscribe, and I will see you next week. Until then, have a beautiful week. Live from your heart. Aho. Gracias.